With the mobilization of Russian forces, there's an enormous number of men who are trying to get across the Russian border, and what we learn is that a lot of the European countries have closed their borders to these people. I understand how difficult it is for a democracy to deal with a sudden onrush of refugees. But I think at this particular moment, the better signal to send to Putin, or the better signal to send to the Russian people who don't understand, who are too naive to recognize there is a problem, is a record number of exits from Russia. Internal hiding doesn't record that phenomenal exit. If we opened our borders, we would have that opportunity. And we would be sending a message to the 50-60% who still believe that Putin is right. Now, one of the problems with doing that is that we don't know who we'd be letting in. And for every innocent young man, we'd also probably be letting in 2 FSB spies or Chechen terrorists. We can't know. There's a very interesting story by a man called Vladimir Osechkin. He was a significant, what should we call, oligarch businessman who fell foul of the FSB and did 4 years in prison. And as a result of this, it was quite clear, when you listen to his account, it's quite clear he was set up because he wasn't prepared to work with the FSB. And he was threatened, and he says that he didn't want to behave like a marionette. The result was he was imprisoned on trumped-up charges. And while he was in prison, he witnessed a level of brutality, torture, criminal behavior in prisons. And when he came out, impressively, he tried to work with the Russian government to tidy up the Russian prison system. But again, the pressure was put on him by the FSB to work with them. If you don't, it will be unfortunate, they said. Trumped up charges on the 9th of September 2015 meant that he then left Russia. And he sought asylum in France. Now, while in France, last year, in fact this year, he was the victim of an assassination attempt. He was given a tip-off by the Spanish authorities, who had recordings of Chechen mafia, and by that point he'd already been given security by the French authorities. And he tells an alarming story about seeing a little red laser dot in the courtyard and then on the wall of his own apartment, and getting his children and his wife to fling themselves on the floor, switch off the lights, and ultimately hearing the of bullets being shot into his apartment. This is the level of brutality and the level of mendacity that we're facing from the Russian system. And that probably is one reason why it's so difficult for European countries, particularly the Balkan countries, to accept anybody from Russia into their country. I still think they should. But at the same time, I can understand why those borders are closing. But we have to get this message across to the huge number of Russian people who are too naive and who believe in the rubbish put out by people like Zainalova, these absurd television presenters masquerading as journalists who are parroting propaganda day and night. And this is all that 50% of the Russian people are hearing and seeing about the Ukraine conflict. The propaganda which is being trumpeted by these ghastly individuals. And if we don't fight propaganda with information, we're not fighting the war that Putin has set up. We're fighting some other war. And we haven't dealt with this information war at all. We've answered Putin's demands. We haven't reached out to counter the Putin propaganda. This is our failure. And we may pay a very high price for not dealing with this. We have the tools, we have the facilities, and we have the ingenuity to get this message out and to inform the Russian people. I don't understand why we haven't done it.